the Team Talk. For those who are not familiar, this is the show where we react to the press conference. But we're doing this as our TAW live show this week. So this is going out live across all platforms, whatever platform you're on. Share it with your mates. If you're on YouTube, slap a like on it and click subscribe to our channel as well. And think about downloading the Anfield Wrap app because you get more great content like this is going to be. And I've got some great people with me to react to Jurgen Klopp's pre-Cardiff City press conference today. And that's John Gibbons and Fuad Hassan in the studio there, and Ian Ryan in his Mars back bedroom by the looks of it. Jurgen Klopp has just held his pre-Cardiff City press conference, and there was some interesting stuff really. He talked about Luis Diaz and Fabio Carvalho, which we'll come on to talk about. Of course, spoke about the lads over in Afcon who were absolutely smashing it and getting through to the final, Sadio Mane and Mo Salah, so we'll talk about them as well. For those who are listening to this as a podcast, there's going to be a little insert in the middle from a Cardiff City fan, a caller who will be telling us more about what they're up to, what they've been up to, and what they're hoping for on Sunday. And then in the third part of the show, which will be just, normal for you who are watching live, but for the podcast listeners, you will hear us doing team selection and score predictions. But John, just dead interestingly, really, how insightful Jurgen was on transfers there in particular, because it tends to be the sort of thing that he skirts over really, and he straight bats from the journalists. But really interesting on Diaz in particular. He basically said that he'd not even met him yet, which I found interesting. He's not been to the training ground, so we should wait, which is a bit sad because it means there'll be no grand reveal for this Cardiff game. But nonetheless, it's so exciting, and I think you'll be able to feel that excitement in the air come Sunday, won't you?
Yeah, he won't be in the squad, it doesn't look like, but they might bring him on just before the game. That might be quite nice. Give everyone a bit of a lift. I mean, we'll need it. AM. We'll be on Sunday. A few will just be getting in midday Sunday. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, so that's why he'll be the most pissed in the ground, John.
Yeah, a few will be doing it right, and the rest of us will still be waking up.
Hey, John, if you want me to buy you a Jaeger bomb, I'll buy you a Jaeger bomb at 11:30.
If that's what you're saying. Yeah, Cannibal bombs for the final. Chatters, no, so, but it'd be nice if they brought him out and he got to say hello to everyone. And I think, seriously, would give everyone, a bit of a lift and a boost and sort of help with the atmosphere. But it'd be nice to see him. But, from what Jurgen's saying, they're very excited about, what he is going to be able to offer on the pitch. And I think, we talked about him and Carvalho. He was more sort of effervescent, if you like, than he needed to be. And from the Luis Diaz point of view, say we like everything he's got. He's got all the attributes required to succeed at a club like Liverpool, and he seems absolutely delighted to have him. And listen, we've watched all the YouTubes, we've listened to all the gutters, and we've I've rung up literally everyone I can about this man, and so I didn't think I'd get more excited. But knowing Jurgen's fully on board, in fact, quite possibly driving the train, is making it even better.
Jurgen Klopp is always driving that train of excitement. And Fuad, as John says there, it was strange to sort of hear him, talking up new signings and that kind of thing so much, because he usually tends to sort of play down expectations. But in this, he says about Luis Diaz, we like pretty much everything about him. I've followed him for quite a while. He has the speed, he has the skill set, he has the character to have a really successful career. And as I said to John before, that there will be that excitement on Sunday, and it just further increases that excitement that we're all feeling off the back of the signing, doesn't it? And I think you'll be able to feel that on Sunday. But as John says, we've all been watching the videos, we've all been trying our best to swat up on Luis Diaz, and it seems like he really fits the bill from what we've all seen and also what Jurgen Klopp's saying.
100%, and there's that other thing, isn't there? Of we've sort of seen this all before a little bit in the context of the type of signing he is, the profile, the age, that whole thing of Klopp mentioned in his press conference, we buy the right players at the right time for us, and this looks very much like another one that's about to kick on to that next level. I think that's why we're not seeing the same kind of hesitation from the manager in terms of, look, it's going to take time. It may well end up taking time, but they clearly see someone who's already got the base level to come into this team and make almost an instant impact. Whether we see the best of him, that's yet to come, and we're yet to see that. But he ticks all the boxes, doesn't he? We've got that track record with Mane, with Salah, with Jota. All three of them, and now Diaz. We're at that exact same stage where they come in for the similar sort of price tag, and they're ready to come on to the next level. And with the players around them, I think that process gets sped up because. He mentioned other teams spending big money. I think there was a question put towards him about other teams spending big money in transfer windows and Liverpool going on for this one. Well, those are buys that aren't exactly planned in terms of looking ahead at the next 3, 4, 5 years, whereas Diaz fits the now and the future.
Yeah, absolutely. And there's something interesting in there which Fuad says about the idea that he does fit the now and the future, because Jurgen Klopp sort of concurs with that in his press conference. It's a really good sign that we work on all fronts to improve this team. We have to be successful for now and in the future, so he can help with both. And he goes on to sort of further explain that it's something that the club are doing, is looking to build for the next sort of generation of whatever this Liverpool squad will become. And I think it is a further sort of display of intent, isn't it? And you knew they'd always be doing it in the background, building for the future. But it's nice to hear the manager coming out and saying as well that, that Diaz is a signing that's not just, for now for us to get excited about. It's because he can be a Liverpool player for, many, many years to come as well.
No, absolutely. And by the way, this is your Mar's back bedroom, not mine. Just so I thought you'd recognise it, lad. Obviously not.
Loads of this on the app, everyone. Loads of this.
I love it.
Been waiting 5 minutes for that.
That's why I didn't have to write it down.
Honestly.
Hold up a sign of it.
I had about 4 versions since then, but I wanted to clean it. I wanted to clean this one, Josh.
In the end, why do you let me go on about transfers?
Honestly, fucking hell, lads. Who are we talking about? No, I think everyone's on the same page, Josh. I feel like I've spoken about this guy loads already. I think everyone's delighted. I think, the way the manager spoke about some of the kind of things he's going to bring to the team. I think pace, first and foremost, is something that gets everyone kind of off the seat and excited, because it's something that I think at times you've seen Liverpool kind of use that really well. Certainly Mane and Salah have had that pace, and obviously it can cause teams all kinds of problems if used properly. I think that becomes difficult when you sometimes you cover up against these kind of low blocks and stuff. But the guy seems to have all the tools, and I think 1 or 2 have gone early and judged him on his performance for his national team, which felt a little bit wild. Hiya, Rob, if you're watching.
He won't. But
he won't be.
Sold him so he can buy someone else.
but I think we've all seen enough footballers, enough elite level footballers who've maybe not been able to flourish for the national team for a variety of reasons, and that team doesn't look particularly great. But the way Jurgen spoke about him, yes, they're going after him because of the ability he's got, but I think mentality is really, really important to this football manager. He's referenced it more than once. This lad's won a league title as well. I think that's important, bringing players in who know how to get over the line, who know how to win big trophies. That all kind of fits, the kind of narrative that Liverpool are trying to create. So I'm really, really pleased with it, Josh. It's a massive shame we probably won't get to see him on Sunday, but as the boys have alluded to, even if he's just coming out, I think before the game, gets a round of applause. That just gets everyone off the seat, gets everyone excited. I think we've all needed this signing, players, manager, fans. So yeah, couldn't be more pleased with it.
Absolutely, yeah. And John, as you alluded to at the start of the show as well, it was interesting hearing the manager sort of. I think there's been a bit of Liverpool opening the bonnet since the signing of Luis Diaz, and showing people how the inner workings of the transfer situation of Liverpool's going at the moment, and that's why I found it particularly interesting today that Jurgen Klopp sort of was prepared to go into that, and also prepared to talk about a lad who we've not actually even signed yet, as though we are going to sign him. And I'll read out his quote. He says, "Obviously, we are still interested. It would be crazy if not, but it's not all in our hands. It was late before the transfer window closed again. We will see what happens." Which he's obviously kept us hanging on there so we can record a few more gutters, which is nice of him. But it is interesting the strategy the club have been approaching this with, because they seem to have been a lot more public than usual. And I was on one of the gutters last week where we sort of spoke about the idea that there was a time when Liverpool's transfer situation became public around Virgil van Dijk, and they got burned on that and had to apologise. And I wonder whether there's a degree to which the club are doing it now to sort of show everyone that everything's in a good way, and that basically we need to all stop banging on and worrying about it.
Yeah, and I think in terms of opening the bonnet, they're taking my lead from LinkedIn on Friday, talking to myself through through my day and thinking, maybe there's something in this. Do check it out.
Who did it first, Julian Ward or John Gibbons?
But I think with Carvalho in particular, I think it shows how confident they are that it is all sorted, and that's great, because if there was any doubt in the mind, he wouldn't have talked as openly as that. I don't think so. I think it is a change of tack, and I think you're right to note it, Josh. But I think it also shows, as well as an added openness, that they're really confident that this one is done, and obviously they didn't weren't able to get the paperwork done in time. But from what I've heard sort of since then, and spoke to a couple of journalists and things like that, they always felt it was going to be difficult, and they actually got further along and closer than what they expected to, really. And so that obviously leads to the disappointment then, because you feel like you've been offered something and suddenly it's sort of snatched away. But, it shows from Jurgen's comments. I don't think he'd have spoke about a player like that if he wasn't absolutely sure that they were joining Liverpool. So all good, all positive. Another exciting young talent coming to the club from the summer, and another one for the future for us to talk about on the One for the Future show.
It's aptly named, I would say, John.
I've just got it.
Only just chimed after all these years. Fuad, it is sort of interesting that the club have been more public about their transfers recently, because I think we can all get a bit doom and gloom about the lack of business, can't we? And I think it's particularly prevalent in this sort of social media age is that there is a bit of a focus on transfers and us wanting to get deals over the line and want to see new players come in, because ultimately we all want Liverpool to be successful, and that's a massive sort of help towards that. And I think those particularly concerns at the moment that the next generation that this Liverpool side was going to be sort of put off almost, because we've been signing so many of these current lads to new contracts as they're sort of getting on now. So I think it's good that the club are coming out and being a bit more public about it and showing us all that we do have nothing to worry about.
Definitely, and as much as it's a thing for us, it's also a sign for clubs across Europe and this country. The fact that yes, this big figure in Michael Edwards is stepping aside, but there's a clear, there's been a clear kind of campaign to show that this is all Julian Ward's work, and he's been the lead in all of this. So that I think they've clearly wanted to make it clear. And again, not just to us, it is a thing generally that Liverpool have got. There's this strong structure in place, and personnel can move, personnel can change, come and go, but we still have the same sort of core and nucleus in terms of our strategy and planning. And the manager made that really clear again in his quotes. That in terms of how they sign players and what they go about, he's not interested in other teams spending 200 million in a window and all this. They have their way of doing things, and that's what they've stuck by, and that's why you're seeing such good results. I think it's easy for us, isn't it, as fans, to sometimes forget how great a transfer track record Liverpool have had, because if you really boil it down, transfers are essentially huge gambles in a lot of instances, and we're used to seeing other teams spend big money, usually without any kind of strategy and coordination. They're sort of rash decisions almost to seeing who's available, but Liverpool kind of completely eliminate that, while still being flexible and having the ability to jump on the Diaz deal when they can see other teams are kind of sniffing around. So there's so much in the club that's been in the dark in the past that we need to sort of appreciate and be confident in, because we probably have amongst the top transfer team, and in terms of staff at the club, probably around the top in the world.
Yeah, absolutely. Ian, it's interesting what Fuad says there about the idea of Michael Edwards leaving, and as I mentioned before, there's a bit of doom and gloom about transfers. There's a bit of doom and gloom almost when Michael Edwards sort of publicised the fact that he was leaving, because I think he's been obviously a key sort of figurehead for Liverpool in terms of their transfer strategy in recent years. So the signs that he was leaving will probably make some people fear even more about the future, and it feels like it's nice for the club to have come out really and sort of address that almost by saying, look, yes, we're all worried about this, but we're already putting a succession plan in place. These are deals that have been made by Julian Ward, the deals that are going to get you all excited, and the future is exciting now.
Yeah, and Liverpool will obviously want to control the kind of narrative as well, and obviously they don't want to be seen to be dropping the ball at any point here. So I think, Fuad's touching on us there. They were very kind of front foot with making sure everyone was aware who took the kind of lead on some of the negotiations that brought Diaz to the club. Obviously, Liverpool will want to make sure they are succession planning. They've done that. It all feels really, really kind of sensible stuff. And I think, one of the reasons I sometimes get a little bit frustrated by the transfer stuff is that Liverpool are very, very good at it. When they tend to get them over the line, there's not that many that have gone wrong. And they may say, well, the reason they are so good is because they do pick and choose the moments when to go into the market to get that. But sometimes it feels like maybe they could be a little bit more kind of aggressive with some of the transfers. But there's no doubt when they go out, Josh, and they kind of identify these players, 9 times out of 10, they're coming in and they're really adding something. And I think, some of that is down to, I think, them working as a collective. I think Jurgen's always keen to kind of say it's not just one person's decision here. Yes, he has the final say, and rightly so, because he is the manager, but it's a collective, and they're all working as a team. And they might not always agree, and that's also important, because you don't necessarily want them agreed on everything. But if it's going to mean bringing a new player in, then, they're all working together, but the manager gets the final say. And as I say, you can't really think of too many bad ones. Obviously, there's obviously 1 or 2 that immediately spring to mind, but over the course of the last kind of 3, 4, 5 years, there's been loads and loads of ticks in the boxes in terms of the people who are coming through the door. They actually are coming in, they're adding value, they've been part of something. Hopefully the part of a new chapter, certainly in Diaz's case, because as we'll probably come on and talk about in a little bit, yes, there's the FA Cup, but also there's still other trophies at stake. You could talk about the league, is it still there? I'm not so sure, but there's certainly plenty to play for.
Absolutely, yeah. Well, we've got an added addition to this team talk because we've got some live comments coming in. Everyone's being very nice in the comments. Got Scott Young here saying we're bouncing at the end of January window. Our lads going in head-to-head in the International Cup final, still in all the cup competitions and chasing down the top of the league. What a time to be a Red, he says, and I completely agree. Highland Matthews as well says, just want to congratulate all Egyptians and people from Senegal with their amazing performance in the Afcon. I was astonished yesterday that Egypt won against Cameroon on their home ground. And John, it was nice, wasn't it? Sort of seeing Mo and seeing the Egyptians getting those celebrations. It was nice seeing Sadio Mane getting celebrations of the night as well. And Jurgen Klopp's been sort of talking that up in the press conference now, saying, he acknowledged that one of them is going to be less happy than the other, but it's so good for, us as Liverpool fans, but also as Hyla says, the people of Senegal and of Egypt to see both those lads and both those teams in an Afcon Cup final.
Yeah, and I think especially Egypt, because I don't think they were meant to be anywhere near the final, really. I had a little look at the odds before the tournament started, and Senegal were right up there, if not favourites, second or third favourites. I think Algeria were favourites, actually, and they ended up sort of bombing out, didn't they? But Senegal was sort of second or first, whereas Egypt were looking like around quarterfinals, really. So to get to the final, and as your man says in the comments, to beat the hosts, albeit on penalties in a semi-final like that, and they took the pens great as well. Mo didn't even have to take one in the end, did he? He just got to cheer, but you could see how much it went to him. Every time Egypt scored, it went to him, and he was loving it, wasn't he? It was big sort of celebrations, and he's a leader in that team, and that's a lot of pressure. He's obviously, a lot of pressure on him in a Liverpool shirt, but, for Egypt, he is the absolute main man. He sort of carries them. He's the best player by a country mile, really, isn't he? But he's fine with that. It's the pressure he's put on himself, and he thrives on it. And I wouldn't be surprised to see him have a really great final. But then obviously Sadio is on the other side. He's leading that Senegal team as well, that looks to me to be a little bit stronger, overall. And so you'd imagine to be favourites. But yeah, it's something nice to look forward to. Beat Cardiff on Sunday, and then a couple of beers after, and then go back and watch the game. It should be a nice Sunday for Liverpool fans, but great for them too. And yeah, we'll see how it goes.
Yeah, Phil, it was nice to see sort of Mo Salah shutting up the critics as well, of which there was one in the Cameroon team before the game. I thought that was dead funny that he came out and sort of gave them that pin to the dressing room wall content. And as John says, it'll be...
Phil does that to me before 5-a-side on a Wednesday.
He was doing it to me before this in the group chat.
Calls himself a host. I don't think he's up to much, really.
Doesn't impress me much.
Fuad, it's 7 p.m. GMT on Sunday, the final. So how many G&Ts and Jaeger bombs will you be by that point?
Nice.
Oh God, that's a good question, Josh. We'll see. Ask me at 12 o'clock on Sunday. No, I was really into how he was getting in the ref's face as well, Mo. We haven't seen that side to him. There's that clip going around at the end of the game, in between the pens, and he's in the ref's face, and the refs literally tell him to go away. And it's brilliant because obviously it means so much in one sense, but also I think the manager mentioned it as well in the press conference. The thing that he really likes to see is how they've taken that responsibility. It's so easy to crumble under that much pressure. We've seen it time and time and again, not just in terms of Liverpool, but we've seen it with international teams. Mo Salah has got the weight of the entire country of Egypt kind of on his shoulders, because that team, if you look at it kind of back to front, there's really not much there. That Senegal team, they've got the best keeper in the competition. There's other good players all around as well. Mo's having to really kind of carry it, and he was doing the team talk as well at the end, and just before the penalties, he was the one after their coach got sent off. So there's so many good little bits, and I think the manager mentioned it that develops them individually, and obviously them developing as individuals helps this Liverpool side massively, because whoever wins it, they come back with that confidence and also with that experience of being in these big moments, and that's another added boost. In the dressing room, suddenly you've got a guy who's gone and won another cup, and Salah or Mane will be seeing the League Cup final as another opportunity to win 2 trophies in February, and how great would that be? So it's really positive for them as individuals, but then that also has knock-on effects for Liverpool.
Yeah, and Ian, in terms of Mane and Salah's availability, Klopp sort of had a little bit to say on that. He said they'd be back on Tuesday or Wednesday next week, and said the winner will probably have to go back home first to celebrate, which I think is absolutely fair enough, but we will see. And Jurgen has to talk to them, and that's sort of exciting, really, isn't it? Because I know me and you had a bit of a disagreement on how far we want Egypt and Senegal to go in this tournament, but now they've got to, this stage. You want them to sort of have as much success as possible, and we're going to get them both back at the same time now, so it's all good.
I don't even remember that disagreement. What was it? what did we say?
I was
you wanted them out early, didn't you? Is that right?
I was talking to you about my desire to see Salah be the president of Egypt one day.
No, listen, I mean, I think everyone, whether you've kind of engaged in the tournaments or not, and I've not been across every game, I have to say that, but I will be watching on Sunday, and I'm delighted for both of them. And yes, there will be a winner and there will be a loser, but I think as Gibbo said, I think from Egypt's point of view, I don't even think they were expected to get anywhere near the final. That the people I was listening to were writing them off, and they've come up against big teams in the last 2 rounds who were well more fancied, is what I was being told, and they've obviously, managed to get through. So testament to both. I think it'll have done Sadio the world of good, to be honest, and I don't think his performances have necessarily been as bad as one or two have said. I think last year was a tough season for him for lots of reasons, but I think there's been green shoots this season. I really do, and I think if you look at his goals, I think he's about 8 in 20 this season, which is not bad. He's not far off 1 and 2 from a wide position. But you can imagine the kind of bounce that either of them will get if they kind of deliver a big trophy for the nation. And I think, it's not just. You can only imagine, can't you, really, the weight of expectation on those players, because they are leaders for those countries. And I know, obviously, they get the armband and stuff, but it's more than that. So to bring a trophy back will be significant, and it'll be huge. And hopefully Liverpool are reaping the benefits. And being serious about it, I probably was a little bit torn, because you're always thinking with your kind of Liverpool head on that you want them to get a rest, you want them to get a break, you want them to be fit and firing for the football club. But listen, they'll be delighted with where they've gone in terms of the tournament and how it's gone so far. And best of luck to both, really. But it will be nice to have them back, and certainly you'd fancy one of them to be making some form of appearance on Thursday night.
Absolutely, yeah. Well, if you're listening to this as a podcast, we're going to hand you over now for the opposition review. Looking ahead to Cardiff on Sunday. If you're watching live, then it's pretty much going to go on as normal. And I'm going to start again with a comment from Jimmy Allen, which says, like the video, folks, and subscribe. Some great content up with regards to how our squad is for the rest of the season. And I agree with Jimmy. I think you should like the video. You should subscribe if you're watching this on YouTube, and you should also consider downloading the Anfield Wrap app. If you wanted to know what happened during the Cardiff City caller there, John Gibbons did it, but we're going to give no spoilers away, because you should be downloading the app to go and listen to that. So make sure that you do go and do that. In terms of team selection for this one, John, then I'll come to you first, because he's got a few decisions, I think, to make, the manager. And there's a bit of an interesting thing in terms of, just where lads have been over the past week in particular. There's been a few lads who've been away on internationals, including the South American lads, been a few lads away on holiday as well. I just wonder how sort of strong he'll look to go for this one, and obviously starting in defence. Whether he starts, Kelleher or Alisson first of all, and whether he's got a few decisions to make around Trent and Virgil and the like too.
Yeah, it's an interesting one, isn't it? And, I was just speaking to Tom there, and they're in a very different position to us, Cardiff, because they played on Wednesday night. They've got a big game, again on Wednesday at the bottom of the league there, whereas we've had this big gap, and then, there's the extra day then to Thursday before, and we're not great generally after big gaps. I don't think Liverpool. I think we're a team that likes to be in rhythm. I think the manager talks about rhythm a lot, and so I think he'll be tempted to go stronger than what he would do normally. I think he'll maybe discount some of the lads who've travelled, who may be sort of back from South America late and things like that. But in terms of the European boys, I would expect most, if not all, of the first teamers to play. I think the only thing is someone like Joe Gomez. I think you'd really like to see him, get some minutes. Maybe play him alongside Virg and sort of give them the option there. And then, but in terms of the others, I think they want to get on the pitch and they want to play. And is it 5 subs in the FA Cup? I can't remember, or is it 3? But either way, you'd expect us to use full sort of complements of whatever's available to him, just to sort of get people minutes and to give people opportunities. You might see some lads getting an hour, and then it's arranged for someone else to get 30 from there. I don't know, but I think from a Liverpool point of view, I think we'll want to go strong because Thursday's a big one. Thursday, Leicester, they beat us at their place, didn't they? They're a decent enough side, and of course there's problems. Whenever we've played them, obviously there was the mad League Cup tie earlier in the season at Anfield as well. So they'll take some beating on Thursday, and I think we'll want to be at it. And so whatever gives us best chance to do that, I think is what you're going to go for.
Yeah, Barry Higgins comment saying no spoilers, Gibbo. I'm going to let you off. I think that was more of a teaser, I'd say.
I was just reading out the fixture list, to be honest with you. It's available. It's available for anyone to look at.
No, I think he means you talk about the Cardiff caller, Tom.
Yeah, that's what I mean. I was just talking about their fixtures.
Yeah, I'm going to let Gibbo off because he's part of the marketing team, so he's doing a bit of work for us there.
Yeah, I'll be out when you're busy.
John makes a good point on Joe Gomez there, I think, because he's the sort of player that you want to see his minutes starting to ramp up now. He's obviously not featured much this season, but coming into the back end of the season in particular, you don't want to get into a situation where, obviously he's behind Matip and Kanate in the pecking order at the moment, but you don't want to get to a situation where if somebody gets injured, that you're having to rely on Gomez and he's got no rhythm, and you feel like you want to keep giving him that incentive to sort of stay hungry there as well. And there's a few other lads that you could sort of say the same for. I think Tsimikas hasn't featured too much recently. We're probably looking at this one as one he can start into.
Yeah, definitely. I think the Gomez thing is huge. I just don't think Liverpool can afford to kind of get in a position where, they do either he's wanting to kind of force a move or Liverpool do have to end up selling, just because, you look at the age and you look at the age of the other centre halves. We do need that kind of age gap. He's 24, 25, I think, isn't he? So he is very much still, a part of the future of this Liverpool team. And if you were to kind of move him on or whatever, then the replacing him is going to be such a big cost. And you're almost going to have to start again in terms of developing a centre half in the way that this manager wants them to be. So I think it's huge for him to start this game and also get that belief back that he can get back to the levels that he was once at. I think there's no reason why he can't. There's nothing he's shown that he can't get there. Obviously, these little niggles with injuries are always going to be a bit of a problem with him. But, we've seen Joel Matip turn that around quite late on, this season, touching all the wood in the world. He's been injury free. So there's no reason for Gomez, I think, not to play in this one. And you're also confident of one of the other two kind of getting dropped in for Thursday night if they have to, because, they've shown they can come in from the cold a bit and deliver performances. So there's plenty of games this month in terms of getting players rhythm, but these players who have been on the fringes a little bit, they do need to get the minutes in this, just because if they are going to be called on any point in the season, like you said, Josh, we do need them to come in, especially, if we're challenging on all four fronts.
Yeah, SG's commented here saying if Gomez leaves in the summer, Nat Phillips will probably end up staying. And Ian, I think that is enough for me to want Joe Gomez to start this game anyway, to be honest, alone. I don't like the idea that there's sort of talk of Joe Gomez going anywhere else, because it feels like not long ago we were talking about him and Virgil van Dijk having probably the strongest centre-half partnership in the world. And I think we've all sort of forgotten over time, because Gomez hasn't been getting many minutes, just how good he can be for Liverpool. And I think Jurgen Klopp needs to sort of, keep making sure that he's giving Gomez that incentive to keep going. And I think that starts with the start on Sunday.
Yeah, I think the manager may have a couple of uncomfortable conversations if he's not going to maybe use the likes of Joe Gomez in this one. I think it's really hard for Gomez, because anyone who listens to these shows or kind of watches the videos will know how much I rate Gomez as a player. I think before the injury, before the last injury, you got a real kind of insight into just kind of the level of performance. I think when he was partnering Van Dijk for that period, there was no doubt in my mind he was one of the best in Europe. He was that good, and I think the question is now, can he come back from another bad one? I don't know. I've said before, the club will have an idea on that. But the problem you've got, even if you're giving him this game, which I think they should give him this game, he looks like a player who needs a run of games. And where's he getting the run of games? Because they come thick and fast, and they're all really, really important. And Leicester's right on the horizon. Now, I don't think there's anyone out there who's suggesting Joe Gomez should start against Leicester, because when he has played, you can still see the rustiness, but you can understand the rustiness because he's not getting the games, and it is going to take him a little bit of time. And even Van Dijk this season, there's been times where he's not quite looked himself, maybe not to the Gomez level, but you can just see he's maybe not quite there. But Van Dijk's getting the game, so he's getting back into rhythm, getting back into routine. Joe's not getting that, so you feel sorry for him. But if he can, and it is an if, but if he can get back to the level he was, he is still one hell of a centre half, and I wouldn't want him going anywhere. I think, he's almost a perfect foil for Van Dijk in many ways. And there's a game that always sticks in my mind. It was Leicester away, and I think it was the one where Alisson makes the mistake. He's unbelievable that day, and there are others that you can choose because he's been great in lots of games. But that day, he was sensational on the cover. brilliant, sniffs danger, smells danger. There was even times when Van Dijk that day was getting caught a little bit, and Joe Gomez was on the cover because he's got that recovery pace, and he was brilliant. And obviously injuries have really suckered him at really unfortunate times, and because he's had so many, you're always thinking, well, can he come back from another one? Maybe he'll get some game time in a fullback position potentially. I don't particularly like him there. But I don't think Joe will be choosy at the minute. He'll just want minutes. But I agree with what the boys have said. I think the manager on Sunday will go really, really strong. You can't really go into that Leicester game, with a load of lads who haven't played for 3 weeks. It just doesn't work. So, there will be one or two probably tough conversations for the manager where maybe one or two players would have been expected to play a game against Cardiff, but I think it will be pretty much as strong as you can go, bar maybe the odd exception, and Gomez may be one of them, because I think he is someone who, as I said before, needs the minutes, and there'll be one or two other areas of the pitch where he can't quite get the first team lads back. We know the forwards aren't going to be there, Salah and Mane, but other than that, Josh, I'd expect 8 or 9 to be really kind of first team players who are probably going to play against Leicester as well.
Yeah, John, I can see the midfield being a bit of a barometer for that in a sense. And Jurgen Klopp was talking about some of the lads that we're going to have back. He was talking about Naby Keita in this press conference and saying that Harvey Elliott will definitely be back in the squad for this one as well, which is obviously massively exciting. But then Thiago won't be a part of this one. So we know we're not getting Thiago. But as Ian says there, I just wonder whether the midfield ends up being the place where Jurgen basically picks the team from and decides to go as strong as possible in there. And then it gives him a few moves elsewhere.
Yeah, I'm not so sure what the score is for Bino because he doesn't play for Brazil, but I don't know if he's travelled. Someone will help me out sort of in the comments. But the likes of, Henderson, who's had sort of a bit of a break, you'd expect to play. And Keita is a good one who, he talked up while he was away, when everyone kept saying to Jäger, you've got Mane and Salah out there. He's like, don't forget Naby, he's a class midfielder for us. Did pretty well out there as well, didn't he? Scored a really nice goal, a couple of man of the matches, and led his team well. And so, maybe this is an opportunity for him. Maybe this is a good game for him to come on. If Keita is wanting a strong end to the season for Liverpool, which I'm sure he is, then this is sort of a good place to start. So I think I'd start him. I think I'd look to go with Keita in this one, and especially if the forward options maybe aren't quite as strong as what we'd like. He's a goal threat from midfield, isn't he? He's probably the one who you'd back the most to score from our current crop of midfielders, maybe between him and Chamberlain, perhaps sort of from that midfield position. And so I think if you are a bit lighter or a bit more inexperienced, shall we say, in the forward options, then Keita makes more sense in that regard as well.
Yeah, Fuad, it's a good point John makes in terms of the forwards picking the midfield to an extent almost as well, because we've seen that in recent weeks. I think where Alex Oxlade-Chamberlain has been starting on the right hand side. Obviously, you've got Harvey Elliott coming back now, who can start on the right hand side, and Curtis Jones, who can start off the left. And I just wonder whether the manager will give himself some moves off the bench in this one in particular. I don't imagine there's a situation in which Harvey Elliott comes straight into this one and starts. But if you go off the basis that you're starting Firmino and Jota off the bat, then there's another place up for grabs there, and a couple of places in midfield too.
Yeah, definitely. And I think if you talk about Oxlade-Chamberlain there, he's more than kind of earned his place in that team, I think, to go again because of how he stepped up, I think, since the others have been away and everything that's happened with the COVID situation as well. He's one that's come out this little period with a lot of credit and goals as well, important goals. So I think the manager does need a bit of rewarding, in terms of these performances and a little bit of an indication that, look, even when we do get these players back, you've shown that you've made a place for yourself in this team, and we do trust you. So I think he will look to go strong there. And like you said, with the substitutions, I think that'll be the key thing, because there will be a lot of chopping and changing. And I think the likes of Elliott and maybe one or two others, the ones that have travelled, I was thinking initially he basically picks his team by going through Instagram and seeing which players have posted holiday pics, because they've been all over the place, haven't they? And been, away from training and stuff. So I think all of them will have to start, because there are so many games coming up that I think if you kind of get it wrong in terms of their rhythm and in terms of what sort of shape they are going into each one, we could be left to pay for it. So yeah, I do expect all there's 5 substitutions as well, right? So I expect all 5 of those to be made, and the ideal situation would be for the likes of Elliott and others to come on in a situation where Liverpool have got the game pretty much secured and done.
Have you played on that golf course in Dubai that the boys were on?
No, I haven't. I've never played golf, John. I've played on any golf course.
Not much of a golfman.
Just in the office.
Yeah, he's rubbish at that as well.
Come on.
Ian, what would you be doing in terms of the sort of midfield and forward line for this one? I think we've seen in recent weeks that the Chamberlain on the right-hand side seems to work with Firmino and Jota in their more sort of natural roles, and then that frees up a bit in midfield, I think, for you to have a bit more of a sort of double eight thing going on, where he's had Henderson and Curtis Jones, and then there's a couple of options who you could almost think about for that third option in midfield if it is going to be Fabinho and Henderson as the other two names there.
Yeah, I think Fabinho travelled, so I don't expect him to kind of start this one. But I think Henderson will play the 6. I think the Harvey Elliott one's interesting because there's been a lot of language used around we're kind of having to hold him back. We're almost kind of desperate to play him. But I think when you think about how bad that injury was, and it was a really nasty one, I think, to be sensible is probably the right thing to do, and maybe just give him the last 30. So because you've got the 5 subs, you can imagine a scenario where the likes of Harvey's getting the kind of last 25, last 30, etc., starting to integrate him back. The Chamberlain thing, I think there's every chance he starts right at the front 3. I'm never quite convinced by him there, if I'm being really honest. But I think what it does do is the thing you said, which it allows Jota to remain kind of left-hand side. I don't really want to see Jota right-hand side. And he'd expect it to be Bobby through the kind of middle. And I said before, it'll probably be 8 or 9 first teamers. It might not be quite that many thinking about it, because I'm expecting the goalie to probably be Kelleher as well. So maybe you're looking at maybe 6.
Kelleher needs to be playing before this League Cup final, I think.
Yeah, exactly. So I think the goalie will be Kelleher. I don't think Alistair will be playing on Sunday, John. So it's probably more like 6 or 7 first teamers. And I think, he's got a little decision to make about what he does in midfield. I'd play Keita. I absolutely will play him, because when he's available, you may as well play him, because I think the thing is with Naby, you never know when he's going to be available. So whilst you've got him, use him. And Gibbo was right to frame it as he had a good tournament. I think the little bits I did catch, he looked like he was playing really well. So let's build on that. Let's get him playing. And as I say, he's a player that you can certainly be looking to use in the coming weeks if you can get him fit and firing. So I'll be playing Keita. And maybe there is a slot for someone like a Tyler Morton if he wants to have a little bit of youth in there, if he wants to kind of have more of a blend. But I just keep coming back to the fact that there's big games on the horizon, and I think you want to keep his bigger players ticking over. So I'm not sure there'll be a place for Tyler, but you wouldn't be massively shocked if he was maybe the 1 or 2 that, if he is going to look to youth, he'd probably be one of the first names you're going to be thinking of. But as I said before, I think it will be a lot stronger than 1 or 2 people are thinking.
Okay, we'll go thinking that Liverpool are going to go strong for this one. So, John, what do you reckon in terms of score predictions? You've obviously spoken to a Cardiff fan, and you'll get an idea of what they're going to be feeling like ahead of the game, what sort of shape they're in. What do you reckon?
Yeah, he's focused on Peterborough. I think
good lad.
I think they're coming for a lovely day out, and I hope they enjoy themselves. I hope they all get to smell how nice Virgil van Dijk apparently smells, and yeah, have a good day. Get me 3-0.
3-0. Fuad, what are you going for?
I'm gonna go 4-0 just to 1-up John.
4-0, nice, good 1-up. Ian, are you going to 1-up Fuad and John?
Yeah, why not 5?
Go on, Josh.
Always in for a 1-up. I'm going to caveat my prediction with a comment from Christian Simmons, which says, Josh, are you feeling a bit silly now after saying a couple of days before we bought Diaz that he needed to go somewhere else and develop more before he's ready for us? And yeah, Christian, I'm a silly boy. Luis Diaz is going to be the best player in the world. The Reds are going to beat Cardiff 6-0, and they're going to go and win all the trophies. It's a perfect time to be a Liverpool fan. Consider downloading the Anfield Wrap app if you haven't already. There's all sorts of this kind of content on there, and also you'll get to hear that lovely Cardiff caller with John before. Up the Reds.